30 years ago, and I'm just saying a number, but 30 years ago, I felt like Japan was filling the textbooks of business leadership. Kaizen, made in Japan was it quality tech, like made in Germany and made in Japan were the two techs for quality. And and then over the time I heard things like people in Japan are getting obsessed with perfectionism. You're telling me they're thinking generations. We don't hear a lot in the world of innovation about things coming from Japan that are pushing the envelope. So I'm asking you, is Japan out of sync with the speed of innovation, or is it intentionally going on a different pace, thinking in generations? Um, how do you see comparing innovation coming from Japan versus the not so far away China, on the other direction, a little further away, Silicon Valley?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So I feel Japan is in their own swim lane at their own pace, and that's what they've decided or are doing as a corporate, huh? As a corporate innovation side. If it's too slow, possibly. Um, but on the other hand, many are still around also, and they're doing some great stuff. So it's hard to say what is a better model, in my opinion. The other thing is that, um, if I may say so, but this is my experience. Japanese corporates, but also Japanese startups, they are really not strong in marketing themselves or like in their communication to the outside world. They very much in their own island. So we don't hear so much what's coming out of Japan actually, and that there's really interesting startups there. And we just invested in a AI manga startup. Like there's some really interesting stuff out there. I also know that quite a few US VCs have fairly recently established offices in Tokyo, and so they're also attracting more funding that way. So but they're just also not very good at marketing. So that's actually one of the routes I want to open up, is actually innovation from Japan to Europe. Because they always come to Silicon Valley and they come to Europe to look at the innovations, but I feel there's so much in Japan already, that we could bring also into Europe or US. Like for example, if I look for some startups in Europe on a certain topic, I just looked at the hospitality space. I found a really great startup from Switzerland. I bring it to Japan, but actually we also found a great company in Japan that's doing even more than what. So it's like it's sometimes really hard to uncover also what's there, and that's what the team is doing in Tokyo, of course. But we don't get to hear about those examples often, in on our side of the ocean.
Yeah, owning the narrative is a very big issue in corporate innovation. We see this in Silicon Valley as well. When you look at companies like OpenAI, who've been trying so hard to own a narrative and they didn't manage, and
Yeah.
Anthropic, who found the narrative, who found their way of being, and makes decisions all of a sudden that go in a complete different path. Johan, welcome back on the hot seat.
Hi, Patricia.
Hi, Johan.
It's nice to hear a fellow Dutch because I'm from The Hague. So I'm joining from The Hague. I don't know where you used to live in the Netherlands, but it's amazingly sunny here today.
In
My
Den
question,
Haag. Yeah, yeah. My last stop was The Hague also.
yes, okay, nice. I used to do martial arts, and we went on some of these, trainings to Japan. And in many of these Aikido trainings, there were, of course, lots of corporate people. So top managers, CEOs, and all these types of. And I always got this feedback that they apply these teachings from martial arts in their daily business life. And then one example was this Shoshin, which is the beginner's mind. So to approach every task as if you, even if you were already a big expert, like every time you start that activity, like start it as a beginner with a fresh mind. Did you also experience this culture of martial arts applied in innovation? And do you think this had an impact on the fact that they go on their own swimming lane, as you said?
Interesting. No, I have to be honest that I haven't consciously been aware of the martial arts principles. They haven't shared that with me. Let's say that was something, but I can see an openness in a topic where they're very keen to learn and absorb. Also, when we open up a new space of innovation, like a deep dive, and I send, some initial line of thought, I get these amazing questions that are so thoughtful and refreshing that I can see the principle that you're describing in the work that I do, but I haven't had it been named or seen it named like that. Yeah.
I'm pushing you out. I don't know if you want to.
Well, if there's no other question, I have a second one. So, but maybe someone else has a
No, come on,
question.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Did you have, I don't know, any connection or experience with the Japanese education system? How do they teach? Is it very different to maybe, what you saw in the Netherlands, the classroom design, or how do they prepare, the next generation for what's coming? Did you have any experience or something that, surprised you, for example?
No, I haven't been exposed much to their education system. I've picked up some examples over the years from different designs that they've made very open. They also have, this very simplified way of living. So that I have seen. Also, my like small things. My colleagues they have very minimalistic styles. It's really like they don't want to complicate things. They ask very complicated questions, but the offices and the style, they're all very minimalistic as well. So it's no clutter, nothing like that. So I do know that the schooling and universities is quite tough to get into the ones that you want. It's very competitive. I mean, the pressure in Japan is very, very high for that. So that's very different than the European system, I think. But otherwise, I haven't seen specific examples on how they build their universities. I do know that once they come out of university, a job is for life. And so you join the company. At Hitachi, it's amazing how many people work there for like not 20 years, no, 30, 40, 45, 50. They work very long. The chairman of Canon is 83 years old and he has no intention to stop. And so they usually work until at least 75. But yeah, 83 is a bit maybe it's time to move on. But yeah, so there is some cultural difference there in how they see also life after university, for sure.
Do you consider this healthy for an organization?
Not
It's
always.
good. Like if it feels like, oh my God, I don't have to worry about my job because it's like I'm 20. I'm gonna work there until I retire.
Yeah.
The opposite is I have to prove myself. I have to have spark. I have to be inspiring. I have to bring in value because otherwise I'll be gone or be replaced by someone else. And both has, every coin has two sides. But I'm curious what that does for innovation.
Yeah, it's a very good question. I haven't really figured it out yet. I mean, on one hand, the institutional knowledge is insane in these companies because it's still there from 20, 30, 40 years ago. So how that helps the future is hard to say sometimes, but the institutional knowledge is very, very, very large. And on the other hand, I haven't seen any of my colleagues work any hour less because they know they have this job for life. So it doesn't impact the effort that they put in, they somehow, it feels like, they're very, very dedicated. Like it's absolutely, the dedication is almost, I haven't seen that anywhere else, I think, in terms of how loyal and dedicated they are to the company. And so, yeah, those are the good sides. But then, yeah, the bad sides, I think at this point in time, there's enough interest in Japan that if they need outside blood, especially in innovation or, venturing roles, they can attract people. And so they have done that. I see that more boards are getting external, like non-Japanese board members and things like that. So they're trying to create some diversity. But yeah, I mean, it's still very traditional. I work in Switzerland, and I always compare Switzerland and Japan. Corporate culture-wise is very similar, and especially as a woman at director level, like the glass ceiling is like this. So I'm hitting it, and I'm pushing against it, because that's, I think, still a huge challenge in Japan, is moving a more diverse workforce up in the senior ranks. So that's maybe a big negative of people staying so long in the same roles. Yeah.
Johan is joining us again. What would you say that Europe could learn from Japan?
Oh, what we can learn from Japan? As well, as a corporate, I see the benefit of giving people permission, especially in innovation, to look further out and to take the time to do that, and to adjust your CFO to a more patient capital point of view, especially right now with, like the new topics are all like deep tech, AI infrastructure, energy transition. This is not the fast moving software topics we had 5 or 6 years ago. These are really long-term, heavy capex plays that need to be thought out well, but also have this type of patient point of view. And the other way, I think it's a bit more subtle, but I would highlight that harmony and in alignment picture, where for me, we have all the technology in the world already. What we need is more collaboration and more alignment with the players. We can't do this alone or as a corporate often. So I think that type of harmony in innovation, for me, would really drive forward the action and the next steps and things that are necessary to accomplish to be able to manage what's coming at us. So I would say these two things, the patience and the harmony.
Interesting. Johan.
So Japan, I'm following the news from Asia, like I love it.
Yeah.
And Japan recently had like the first female prime minister, right?
Yes.
I forgot her name, but I see her image in front of me, and she's like a little bit funny sometimes. You saw her playing music with some. I mean, yeah, she brings a new type of leadership, I think. So my question is more like, over those years you spent in Japan, how easy is for a female to grow in leadership, and how is this balance between male female on a management level? Like in Europe, for example, I see it at my organization that they're desperately trying to put more women in leadership positions. And how is this in Japan? Is the trend the same, or is it more balanced? Like you really have to prove yourself to reach a certain level of leadership?
Yeah, so it's very much behind Europe, I think, if you look at the numbers. I mean, when my last 1 or 2 years at Hitachi, I think it was, I want to say 14% female directors and up. And the target for 2030, which I found shameful at the time, was 30%. So they were not looking at 50%, let's put it that way, at all. So they're at that level. It's very difficult for female directors. There's very few of them. So there's not a lot of female directors that can bring up, and that younger directors or younger employees have role models for. So it's far and few between. They don't have these, they write that they have some of these quotas and targets, but they're not, I would say, very proactively placing female directors in their executive teams. It's really by like hard work and showing, and that's why there's there I see a lot of females. It's quite black and white. You're either going for your career and you don't have a family, or you go for your family and you let completely go of your careers. It's very like black and white for that. And the female now the lady that you referred to, the prime minister, she's actually from the Conservative Party. So that's very interesting. That was something that a lot of my female colleagues were very happy that there was finally a female leader, but they also understood that she's from the Conservative Party. So in the end, actually, not that much might change. So it's a bit dual. So they haven't figured it out yet. They will have to, because their workforce is shrinking so fast that if they don't include the female workforce, it's going to be really, really hard. They need a lot of robots. That's how they do it. Yeah.
We had a conversation about the talk was called The Soul of the Machine. How about companies bring the relationship of companies with data? And Sebastian, the speaker, said one of the things that companies need to establish in a culture of disagreeing with your superior if you have the data. Now, the Asian culture is known for face value, so disagreeing with the superior is not something that will come natural to people, I can imagine. But do you see this changing? Do you see that when your CEO says something and you have data that proves him wrong, would he listen to you, and would you have a voice, or would this still be something that's a wall?
No, we have a voice, absolutely. The way is that we don't seek the confrontation. Maybe that's the difference. We spin another story. So in that sense, we do a lot of story building internally, which that definitely doesn't come out on the outside, but on the inside, it's very much around the story building and spinning it a slightly different way, if that's the case, if there's something that needs to go in a different direction. And the only thing is that you can only do that if you have the trust of the executives, and that takes quite a bit of time and quite a few proof points for them to trust you. And then the third thing is that you do need to have a lot of detail underneath. And so you'll also see when there's executive or there's presentations, they are cramped. These slides that we show, you would never show them in Europe or US. They would be like, who designed your slides? This is horrible. There's just so much on there. And these executives, they pick these details, and that's what might convince them. So whenever you paint the story, you can paint a really nice high level story, but underneath, you better have a lot of data, like you say. But we would not flash that data direct, like confrontationally in someone's face and say, look, we found this and it's the opposite of what you said. That's something we would never do, but we would weave it into the story and have it all back there, and they read it. Usually we have to send everything quite a bit in advance so that there's time to digest everything.
Interesting. So you have to package it, but they still
Yes.
trust the human more than they trust the machine.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's for sure. That's for sure. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I really found it fascinating because I think I had this conversation with also someone when I'm doing the tour, said, why don't you do a tour in Japan?
Yeah.
My answer is it is not on my radar screen, and I don't have a good answer why it is not on my radar screen, because it was the innovation and quality center of the world. But if it's just a narrative, then they just have to fix the narrative. But I don't, you know from the inside how much of it is true.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but especially in like certain areas, like I would say medtech and robotics, and some I would say the human side of AI, maybe AI and emotions and AI and machine and in humans, that connection. There's a lot of interesting startups, but also some of the corporates are doing pretty interesting things. Also on the art, but that's probably less tech innovation. But I would say yes, there's a lot there.
Would you
Uh,
say that there's a specific domain, like China or Shenzhen was hardware, was producing things.
yeah.
Silicon Valley was data, software. Someone posted earlier that they're very strong in robotics. Is there a specific domain where you would say that this is what Japan is really great at?
Well, I definitely on the art and cultural side, I would say. Also on the robotics, I agree with that point. Quantum is very, very strong as well in Japan. Used to be blockchain too. I stopped looking at that a while ago, so I don't know how it has evolved. But yeah, that was also very strong. And then all these kinds of how would you describe them? There's some really interesting infrastructural systems, like for merchants or like payment systems and things like that. That you very complex systems. So there is definitely a huge strength there on the software integration and software layers side of things and connectivity. But that so I would say there, and then of course if you're interested in nuclear, yeah, you probably look there as well. But they are looking at Europe, for example, for sustainability and energy, renewable side. Those, and then of course the AI and in the US and things like that. So they are looking outside for those topics specifically, because they know, yeah, they're a bit weaker on that side. But in general, the research quality and universities in Japan are extremely high. I think what they have had just a challenge with, and not only the universities, but also a company like Hitachi. I think we were the seventh largest company in the world in terms of IP filings. But if you looked at what we actually commercialized, that was like very, very, very low. And so they have a commercialization challenge, is what I would call it in Japan.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Another thought that came to my mind is might be the closing thought is catastrophe resilience.
Yes.
Um, there is a huge source of innovation in catastrophe resilience. It is, I think, one of the SDGs even, and Japan had to face a lot of resilience, a lot of catastrophes in the last years with tsunamis and um, the effects on the nuclear plants and so on. Is this something that is on the focus? Is this something that people talk about, or is it more of a we are resilient anyways, and whatever happens, we're gonna stand back up on our feet again?
Oh, well, they have fairly decent systems in place, but my out of my top three topics and focus areas. One is resilience. And so it's disaster management, it's energy resilience, because also they're an island. And they're very much reliant on global supply chains as well. So it's resilience from, yeah, disaster recovery, disaster management, and from a sort of independence kind of philosophy. And it's very, very high on the agenda. And so, yeah, I'm looking at anything that's portable and movable and fire to put out fires fast and to rebuild a whole new city from scratch if there is a tsunami or so. It's extremely top of mind for them, even though they're already very prepared. But yeah, it's still a lot to do on forecasting and preparedness and resilience, like you say. So yeah.
Do you see that this is a potential to go beyond their own needs because catastrophe resilience, hard work, where climate is going and the climate pressure or the pressure on the planet is going and the climate response will be something that more and more countries and regions will have to deal with?
Yeah, that's a very interesting thought. That could be their next big export, uh, in a way, innovation export. Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
We have what do we have here? Kinga. Would you like to join us here, Kinga? She just posted something. Let me invite her to join us here.
Yes, just very quickly. It's very interesting for me to see a completely different attitude towards what's happening around us, that you don't necessarily need to have this urge to react immediately and still can think on a long-term basis. That's very nice. And I also really liked the fact that they are producing things for elderly people. So this kind of respect that they have towards the old generation, it's something which also comes from their culture and I think from their tradition. Yeah, while for us here in Europe, this I formulated already by following the previous talk, is that somehow discipline is not a value anymore. We are so much shifted towards individualism that even when there is a rule and if someone wants to follow it, it's not cool anymore. So it's and this leads actually to chaos, complete chaos. And when we are thinking that actually we are approaching or getting more closer to some freedom, we are actually getting farther away from it, because with this attitude, we won't be able to make the choices which provide actually the freedom for us. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very thoughtful approach of insight, what you just shared, I think. Very interesting. And I agree with you because, you know, it does seem like, okay, if you can't break the rules, you can't innovate or something like that. But yeah, I don't believe that at all. And so I think even without breaking the rules, or sometimes you do, but you do it quite consciously, I think you can still accomplish a lot. But it should not be the modus operandi, I think, especially for society. I mean, that's clear. I think the closest culture. So Japan, maybe last comment. Japan loves the Nordics. They have such a high level of trust with Finland and Sweden. And I lived in Sweden, and in Sweden also you don't really break the rules. You stand in the queue, you pay your taxes. It's not cool. It's not cool to break the rules there in society. And I feel that that's why they might like the Nordic cultures in Europe, because still a little bit more, yeah, in the same vein as what they see and how they respect their society. But yeah, that's very strong, and you can see a bit of the cultural connection there. So yeah, but I fully agree with you. So, and there's never any graffiti in Japan on the trains and stations, and it's a lot of respect throughout for elderly, for infrastructure, for education, for your job and your company. Yeah.
Fascinating closing thoughts that break the rules to make innovation might not be the way to go. Patricia, thank you so much for this session. Thank you so much for these insights. I'm actually really happy to have these insights from Japan because I have none. I've never been there. I'm doing these tours. The closest I get to Japan is China.
Yeah.
And it was really, for me, very, very interesting to hear from you about how Japan is moving on and how it's innovative and the culture and this long-term generation thinking. That was great. Thank you so much for this.
Yeah, thanks for the invite, and for everyone for their participation and energy. It was really nice to meet you. Stay in touch. Yeah.
Thank you so much. All the very best to all of you. Goodbye.
Okay. Bye.